Imagine this, you've just moved across the country from the big city to a small town in order to be closer to your partner. In theory, you should have a new beginning there, with everyone being a total stranger. But for some reason, everyone recognizes you as someone else, and they're not too happy about it. This is the basic premise of Identical Stranger, a new webtoon from writer and artist Neal Elephus. So far, 3 chapters are out, and I'm already hooked. I'm Matrix, and in this video I'll tell you why Identical Stranger might be the next big webtoon. Just for full disclosure, I found out about this webcomic because the author reached out and asked me to take a look, but this is not a sponsored video and everything is my genuine opinion after reading. What I like most about Identical Stranger so far is how simple but unnerving the premise is. In the first chapter, on his way to his new home, the main character Danny hears a radio broadcast about how the town's streets have been filled with unusual papers on the anniversary of the day a young man went missing. When Danny arrives in the small mountain town, he's immediately thrown into odd interactions. For example, the first person he meets is his new landlord, who calls him Andy and insinuates that he's had a room there before. Elsewhere throughout the town, he's met by constant stares and even baffling accusations from other people. It's clear to the reader from chapter 1 that Danny looks exactly like Andy, the person who went missing. But Danny isn't privy to this fact yet. After 3 chapters, he's still extremely confused by the way people are treating him. And that's what makes the story so compelling. We get to see Danny's perspective as he faces his odd interactions and tries to figure out why people are treating him so strangely. I just find the idea of having an identical-looking person who disappeared so intriguing and frightening. The story's tags on Webtoon are crime/mystery and drama, so it seems like it won't be getting into horror territory, but there's a real thrill to the unknown. How will Danny function in a town that won't even believe he is who he says he is, and how will he uncover the truth of the missing person? There's also some great characterization between Danny and his girlfriend. They have a strained relationship, and while Liz is understandably upset that he arrived late, she's also quite cold during a lot of their interactions afterward. Liz is the one other person who seems to not know what's going on, though her behaviors indicate she might sense something is off from the start. I think it's great that Danny not only has to tackle his strange circumstances, but he also has to deal with drama with the one person who should be his lifeline. Danny himself is a pretty likable main character so far. He's polite and seems very sensitive to the feelings of others. For example, he does a lot of things to try to cheer his girlfriend up after he makes her angry. I think these qualities work well because they clash harshly with the negative feelings that the townspeople seem to harbor toward him. As far as the writing goes, I wouldn't give much critique. The only thing I thought was a bit unnecessary was the exposition at the very beginning from the radio broadcast and the driver of the car taking him to the new town. I feel like Neal has done such a good job of building the atmosphere of the town that she could have just started with that and introduced the missing person idea more gradually. That said, I understand why there's front-loaded exposition. Tons of anime and manga do the same thing, because there's a very limited time to sell the audience on the concept. Overall, I don't think it's a big deal. Now, let's talk a bit about the art in Identical Stranger. I'm not super experienced with webtoons, and I know each artist's style is different, but I think Neal's art fits in with other webtoons I've seen in that it's somewhere between comic book and anime style. The characters have relatively realistic facial features, but more complex hairstyles. I also think Neal did a good job of making even the background characters look distinctive and interesting. There's a nice range of facial expressions and different ways that people angle their bodies, too. Another thing I appreciate is that the size of the panels used constantly varies throughout each chapter. Since you read webtoons by simply scrolling, the variation makes things visually interesting, especially when it switches between very close shots and wider angles. I think it would be cool if in future chapters Neal played around with the shapes of panels instead of having them all be rectangles, but that's a personal preference and I'm not sure how common that is with webtoons since I have fairly limited experience with them. In future chapters, I would also enjoy some more large-size panels, but I think those are more common during climactic moments, and it's good that Neal hasn't made them excessive so far. I also think that Identical Stranger has a lot of nice background details. I've seen some webtoons that are a bit lazy about the backgrounds and just focus on drawing the characters. However, this one does a good job of always having something to look at in the background, even if it's stuff that only appears for a single panel. There aren't a lot of panels that don't feature characters in the foreground, but the few that appear look good. I'd maybe like a few more of those so that we can dive even deeper into the small town setting. Overall, I'm really enjoying Identical Stranger and I'll absolutely be keeping up with it. Neal Elephus says that she will be updating the webcomic every other Saturday starting January 22nd. and since there's only 3 chapters out so far, it's a great time to start reading. I've linked Identical Stranger on Webtoon, as well as Neal Elephus's Instagram, in the description, so please check those out if you're interested. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for weekly content. I'm Matrix from Matrix AM, Anime, and more, and I hope you have a great day.